Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at a mock test from Ashfield Driving Test Centre. As we start the video, we're coming out the test centre driveway, and as I say every time on the videos about this one, you want to make sure that you're keeping the car nice and straight and getting all the way to those giveaway lines when you come to the end of the driveway. This will allow you to see around the signs on the right hand side to see if anything's coming, and it'll also keep you in the lines, keeping in mind that you've got an incoming lane on your right hand side, and of course the depot on the left where the HGVs will be coming in and out on your left as well. So you don't want to be leaning over those lines and causing a problem for any vehicles that are coming into those lanes. When you're at the end of the road, remember to make effective observations before pulling out, making sure you can see a safe gap from both directions before you start moving out. Now, the start of your driving test is when you're likely to feel the most nervous and the most hurried, so that's when you're most likely to make the mistake of rushing for a gap. You got to make sure you keep those nerves at bay, keep yourself calm, and take your time to make safe decisions. With railway crossings like this, make sure you can get out the other side of the yellow box and the crossing area before you cross into it. You see nice and clear on this one, so no issues for this pupil. And then just ahead, we've got a mini roundabout. You can see the markings here telling you how to align for your left turn or for straight ahead. Now, as you can see, we've got a little bit of traffic on the other side of the roundabout. We want to make sure that that's all flowing before we enter the roundabout, so we don't end up sitting in the middle of the junction and causing a problem for anyone trying to cross the junction in other directions. So make sure the other side has space for you before you enter that roundabout. Just note the speed sign on the left as well there, that this changes from a 30 zone into a national speed limit zone. Because it's a single carriageway where you're sharing the road with oncoming vehicles, that means the speed limit is going to be 60 miles an hour for a car. But of course, we've got to account for whatever's going on in front of us. We've got roadworks up ahead at the traffic lights on this occasion, so you don't want to be rushing through here at 60 miles an hour. It's not going to be appropriate. At the lights, we're going to be turning right, and the roadworks prevent any oncoming traffic coming through at the same time, so we've got a clear run to make the turn. Make sure when you're doing these right turns that you're looking up into that new road before you start turning as well, because if you don't have a safe space to turn into, you need to know that before you start turning. Down into a 30 mile an hour zone now, and just up ahead we've got a tight left turn coming up. You will really need to slow down if you're taking this turn. It's very hard to see what's going on because of the hedges, and it is a narrow road. I've got a few videos where pupils have come around on that corner a little bit too fast. The car goes out into the middle of the road, and with the lack of visibility, you can't see what's coming the other way, so that is going to be a high-risk fault, which is a serious fault. If there is anyone there, that can quickly escalate to a dangerous fault, and even the examiner taking action to prevent any problems. So just keep in mind, if you're coming into a corner where you can't see properly, you need to bring that speed down effectively to make sure you're safe. I'm going to pull up on the left-hand side here, and anytime you're doing this, it's a case of picking a safe and reasonable location. Now, I think the pupil is a little bit too close to this junction. It is a quiet road, so I'm going to record it as a driver fault, not anything more serious. Just be mindful that you're not getting too close to junctions when you do pull over. The highway code recommends that you should be 10 meters from a junction when you pull over, and that's what the examiners will look for as well. Don't forget, when you're moving away, check your right blind spot, make sure you're safe before you start moving. Now, just ahead, we're going to pull up again and do the same thing. Again, it's just picking a safe space to pull over, check your mirrors and signal before you do so, and bring the car to a gentle stop close to the curb as well. Now, this one in particular is an angle start where you're asked to pull up directly in front of a parked vehicle. The examiner may tell you, don't worry about the driveways on this occasion. If that's the case, don't worry about the driveways. Then when you move off again, don't forget your blind spots, looking ahead for oncoming vehicles, and don't rush to get around that vehicle because that's going to compromise your control over the steering. Now, I always recommend as well when you're doing this, make sure you double check your blind spot just as you start moving off, and that's going to help keep you safe in the long run. Don't forget, it's not just about passing the driving test, it's about being safe afterwards. This road here, you can see it's a very poor visibility junction. The hedges and the walls block our view, so the pupil's done a really nice job bringing the car to almost a complete stop to allow himself to see to the left and to the right effectively before pulling out. At this point, we're doing our right reverse maneuver. Now, the idea of this, of course, is the examiners will ask you to pull up on the right at a reasonable place. The pupil's done a good job of that, checking his mirrors and signalling before doing so, and being mindful of oncoming traffic if there is any. When you're reversing, make sure you're looking all around the car throughout the maneuver, just like this pupil is here, keeping it really slow and steady. The examiner will tell you when to stop, so don't worry about that. You just keep moving till the examiner gives you that cue. And then when it comes to moving off, again, don't forget to check over your left shoulder to look for what's coming up behind. And as you start moving, just like with the angle start, double check that left shoulder just to ensure that you're completely safe before you fully commit to going across the road. Be mindful of oncoming cars again, because of course they do have priority when they're on the road and moving over you who's trying to join the road. At the end of this road, we're going to be turning left, and the pupil unfortunately comes up to the junction with no signal on at all, starts leaning in, and then puts his signal on. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't give anybody enough information as he's coming up to the junction. It pretty much means that he's actually starting to turn before he's telling people his intentions, and that voids the whole point of using signals. The whole point of the signal, of course, is to tell people what you're doing before you do it. So make sure you're signaling just before you get to that junction, giving people time to respond and process what they can see before you actually start turning. Now here we've got another case of pulling up on the left and driving on again. This one is a hill start, so we're facing uphill, and it's a little bit busier of a road, so you've got to be more aware of traffic coming up behind you as well. Now, something that's really easy to overlook when you're doing this is looking ahead of you as well, because while you're focusing on the mirrors and the blind spot and what's coming up behind you, you can easily overlook what's coming the other way. And if you've got a vehicle overtaking another vehicle coming the other way and you pull out in front of that, that is going to be your mistake and it will go against you on your driving test. It's also going to put you at high risk when you're out and about on your own. So make sure you're always looking ahead at what you're planning to drive into. The traffic lights here, you'll notice we've got two separate lanes for straight and right. Make sure you're lining up correctly based on where you're going. If you are moving into that right-hand lane, mirrors and signal before you do it. And then, of course, you'll see the traffic lights. We've got two lights on the opposing side of the junction. One of them applies to you and one applies to the other traffic. So while you're sat here waiting, make sure that you're aware of those two separate sets of lights and avoid fixating on one set of lights in particular. If you're sat looking at the light on your right, you can see here the left one changes, and before you know it, the car behind is going to be beeping at you, and that's your test failed. Now, it's also important not just to focus on the traffic lights, but what's going on the other side of the junction and what's going on in those side roads as well. If you're more aware of your surroundings, it helps you plan more effectively. And that, of course, is going to keep you safe both during your driving test and when you pass your test afterwards. You've got to be looking after yourself, because there's going to be no instructor next to you telling you what to do or reminding you what to do or pointing out problems. You've got to keep your eyes moving and you've got to pick it all up for yourself. Mini roundabout would just be looking for things like the HGV there. There's no signals. There's no reason to believe they're going to turn. So the pupil's made a good decision there to keep moving. Now, with a large vehicle like that can't change direction very quickly, I'm okay with that decision. Just be more cautious if it's a car or a van, because sometimes they will swing around at the last minute or signal at the last minute. So you want to be a little more defensive with things that can change direction more quickly, such as cars, vans, bikes. You may have noticed as we're going down this road as well, there's a few speed limit changes. We've been through a 40 section and now we're back down to 30. So just keep your eyes moving for signs as you're going along. The more information you can spot and the earlier you can spot it, the better you can plan your driving. Notice the car on the right as we're coming up to the roundabout. He hasn't got any signals on, so the pupil has made the right decision here just to hold back and ensure they are turning before he pulls out into the roundabout. Now, that is really good awareness, good planning, and good defensive driving. What he hasn't done is allowed it to escalate into hesitation. As soon as that car has showed that it is going to the left, the pupil's got it moving without any delay. Coming over bridges like this, just be mindful of the warning signs, oncoming vehicles that you may not be able to see coming in and out of that side road. So anytime your view is restricted like that, just come off the power, let your speed drop down a little bit, And check your mirrors, of course, because you want to know how vehicles behind are going to be affected, or whether they're going to try to make an overtake as you slow down. And of course, spotting that nice and early is going to help keep you safe. As we come up to this right turn, notice how the road bends to the left, and it makes it really difficult to see what's coming the other way until you're pretty much at the turn. The pupil's done a nice job there of slowing down to make sure he can see before he commits to the turn. You've got to also remember to look up to that new road to make sure you've got a safe space to turn into as well. So really slow speeds if your view is restricted, or if your space is restricted, just like with a parked car there. The pupil's made a good decision, I think, to just slow down and make sure he's safe before committing to the gap. Pulling up on the left again here, it's not unusual to do this around about 3 or 4 times on your driving test. And the examiners are just looking to see that you can pick a safe place, you can pull up safely, secure the car, and remember when you're moving off, you're looking around effectively, looking at the oncoming vehicles, looking in your mirrors, looking over your blind spot, particularly if there's side roads or crossings nearby, and then moving off into a safe space. Now, if you get asked to do these in quick succession, it can make you start to feel a little agitated. Try not to let that get in your head. It could just be a case of the examiner wants to double check something that they may have overlooked, or it could be a case of the route doesn't allow you to do your pulling up and moving off later on in the test. And you'll see what I mean on this test route in particular, where there's a lot of main roads and not much opportunity to pull over in the later part of the test. So we've got all of the pulling up and moving off done in the early part of the test, including the maneuver, just because there's not really an opportunity to do any of that in the later part of the test. When you are coming through housing estates like this, just make sure that you're adapting your speed appropriately. When you're coming up to roundabouts, you're reducing your speed, you're checking your mirrors, you're looking for safe gaps and keeping it flowing at a safe speed. Now on that second roundabout here, the pupil was a little bit fast coming in, so I'm going to mark a driver fault there. I feel he should have been a bit slower because it's hard to see what's coming from the left-hand side, meaning they can't see us approaching as effectively. And that, of course, means if they pull out thinking it's clear and we're coming up a little bit quick, we're going to close that gap a lot quicker than that car's expecting. And that's going to cause both of us to have to react more sharply. And that, of course, takes away from the smoothness of the drive and it increases the risk. We want driving to be as smooth and relaxed as possible, particularly when we've got the examiner in the car. And even if you think of it, after your driving test, when you've got passengers in the car, you want them feeling really chilled out, really relaxed with your driving. You don't want them feeling agitated or stressed about the way that you're handling things. And sharp changes to your speed and your direction, particularly sharp braking, is going to make your passenger feel less comfortable. So you want to be the person who they love getting in the car with, and smooth, relaxed driving is the way to do that. Up ahead, we've got a number of direction signs here. If you look at the layout on this sign, we're going to be taking a left at the traffic light. And that's pretty simple. We're just going to keep to the left-hand side near the curb. Keep in mind these lanes are quite narrow, so keep an eye on your mirrors, keep your positioning really tight to that curb, and also watch your signal timing. We've got a junction on the left just before we get to the lights. If you're signaling before you pass that junction, it's going to mislead people into thinking you're taking that turn. That is why the pupils picked up a driver fault there, putting on the signal too soon. As we move away, you want to be making sure you scan around the junction and especially looking up into that new road where you intend to turn into. If you're not looking around and something else is going on in that junction, such as a blue light vehicle coming through, or a cyclist or pedestrian who's maybe rushing to get across the road or across the junction before their lights change, if you miss that, you are the one who's responsible for it. Because remember, a green light doesn't mean you can just go. It means you can go if it's safe to do so. So you're responsible for checking it's safe before you cross that line and make your turn. Shortly after the turn, this road did increase to a 50-mile-an-hour limit. Up until you pass those signs, it is still 30, so be mindful of your speed. You've got 2 lanes merging into one, so you want to be mindful of what's coming around you, potentially trying to overtake you. And then, of course, when you hit this 70-mile-an-hour stretch, you want to be picking up your speed nice and fluently. Just be mindful up ahead, we've got traffic lights as well. Now, I've said this in a couple of my other videos. Traffic lights are a really challenging thing to get right, and a lot of people get stressed out and they panic react when the lights change. Now, unfortunately, what they're doing is allowing the lights to dictate what they're doing, when what we should be doing is making our decision before the lights make it for us. As you're approaching traffic lights, just ease off the power, check your mirrors, and pick a point of no return. When you reach that point of no return, if the lights are still green, back on the gas and away you go, not forgetting your mirror checks. If the lights have changed before you reach that point of no return, then you stop in. And if your toe's already covering the brakes, that's going to help you slow down more smoothly and more safely. And that, of course, is going to protect your back end from being shunted as well. And it's going to keep the examiner nice and relaxed, and your passengers, after you pass the test, nice and calm too. Now, if you approach a traffic light with your foot on the accelerator and those lights change, the movement of your foot from the accelerator to the brake is going to create a sharp change of dynamic in the vehicle. That's what's going to make the examiner or your passengers feel less comfortable, because the change is very sudden and very noticeable. Whereas if you're off the power with your toe over the brake, then you've got less of a jerky reaction because the car's already naturally slowing down. Added to that, your leg movements are going to be a lot calmer because you're not rushing to get onto that pedal, which means you're not going to stamp on it inadvertently. So just covering the brakes, checking your mirrors until you hit that point of no return. That's the key to getting yourself more confident with dealing with traffic lights. As we move along this main road, you'll see there's a number of lanes, and the pupil's keeping in the left lane for the duration of this, and that's absolutely spot on. If you're in a multi-lane road and you're not overtaking, then you want to be on that left side. You'll also want to be checking your mirrors frequently so you know who's around you and what they are doing. Just up ahead, you'll see a sign on the left saying Blackwell in 1/4 mile. Now, we are going to take that exit, and then at the 2 roundabouts at the top of the slip road, we're going to be coming back towards Mansfield, which is basically making a U-turn to come back the other way on this road. Now, this set of roundabouts does catch a lot of people out, and it's typically the second roundabout that catches people because the lane discipline on it is quite unusual. So why not put the video on mute while you go through these 2 roundabouts, see if you can spot the mistake the pupil makes, and then come back and watch it again with the audio to see what I say about the pupil's approaches and how to actually tackle this roundabout safely and correctly. As we come up to the first roundabout, we're turning right second exit. So the usual approach applies, mirrors and signal, positioning to the right hand side, keeping close to that curb on the right as we come in. Notice there are 2 lanes just as we reach the end there. Just as we come around the top, you want to be doing your left mirror, left signal here, and then moving into the right-hand lane as you exit, not the left-hand lane as this pupil does. Now, that's an easy correction. Mirrors and signal, change position if it's safe. If not, you just take an exit that's safe from the left-hand lane, and the examiner will reroute you. Coming around this second roundabout, we're keeping to the right-hand side. And as we come around the top, you'll notice the little sign on the left that says Panatoni Park. That is the point you want to be in the left-hand side. And then you're not going to be crossing lanes to exit for Mansfield here. Be mindful of the dead end just before the exit. Now, I'm going to record a driver fault because of the crossing lanes there. The pupil did cover his mirrors. He was signalling effectively as well. There was nobody around that caused a problem, but crossing lanes like that is not a good idea anyway. So I'm going to put a fault down for that. As we're trying to merge in from a slip road like this, you want to be planning this nice and early, using your mirrors, checking over your shoulder and signaling in good time so everybody knows you're trying to come into that new road, but also making sure that you build your speed up to match whatever the speed is of the traffic on the main road. So with the HGVs, for example, we're doing about 55 to 60 mile an hour. So as we come down the slip road, that's the speed you're aiming for. You don't need to look at your speedometer, you need to look at the traffic, and you need to pick a space before you merge into it. If you can pick a space and you can focus on getting into that space safely, then that's going to help you get into that road more effectively. What a lot of people do, unfortunately, is they panic about the traffic, they become indecisive, and that's where the problems start coming in. Coming down the main road, we have got a 70 mile an hour speed limit again coming down this way. However, we've got to match our speed to whatever's in front of us. The pupil's doing a nice job here, keeping a good following space behind this HGV. Especially with big vehicles, you don't want to be getting too close because they really do obstruct your vision. Now, by keeping his space, he can keep the traffic lights in sight before he reaches them. Unfortunately, he forgot to pick his point of no return on this one and ended up braking a little bit too firmly for my liking. So I'm going to record that as a driver fault for control on the foot brake. This is exactly what I mentioned earlier about planning your approach to traffic lights. If you're indecisive about where your point of no return is and you're reacting to the lights, you're going to jump on that brake, and that's going to make it uncomfortable for your passengers, for the examiner, but it's also going to increase the risk of you getting rear-ended, because that's the point where people are still on the accelerator behind you and they're potentially going to put the foot down and try and get through that light expecting that you're going to carry on. So you don't want to be jumping on the brakes. You want to be gradually reducing the speed, covering the brakes nice and early to make that stop more controlled and more predictable and more smooth for your passengers. As we come up to the next set of traffic lights, we are continuing straight, but I just want to point out the little filter lane on the left-hand side. As the pupil stops at the traffic light, if you look over to the left-hand side, you'll notice that the slip road is not controlled by traffic lights, but instead a give way. So if you are taking that left turn, or you're coming from the other side of it, turning right, just be mindful that the traffic on that filter lane is not controlled by the lights. Now, it's very easy to make the mistake that coming down that filter line, you don't have to give way to anyone because the markings are so faded and the give way sign is hidden just around the bend. You want to be making sure you reduce your speed and you're checking it's safe anyway. Even if you do have priority, you still need to be looking around and making sure you've got a safe path. And of course, that looking around, that scanning for potential risks is going to help you plan and be more defensive about other traffic making mistakes too. Just entering into a 50 zone here, and the lanes have merged in as well to one. As you're approaching those merges, make sure you're covering the mirrors, make sure you're looking out for anyone who's trying to take that last opportunity to get around you before those lanes close in. And that's the same case at any road where those lanes close in like that. Get on those mirrors and make sure that you're ready for anyone who's potentially going to try and overtake you right at the last minute. If you're ready for them, you can plan and you can smoothly respond to them. What we don't want to do as well is get into competition with people trying to stay in front if someone's trying to get around you. One of the phrases my instructor used to use when I was learning to drive was, let the trouble go. Don't get yourself involved in any conflicts unnecessarily. Just ease back, let them get ahead of you, let the problem out of your way, and then everybody gets on the day happily. As we're coming through these traffic lights, just be mindful again of the potential for those lights to change and keep your eyes moving for anything such as pedestrians or blue light vehicles that might want to come through the junction unexpectedly. Just like I mentioned earlier, a green light doesn't mean you can just go blindly. It means you are allowed to go if it's safe to go. So you're responsible still for making sure it is safe. Another lane merge there as well as we come across the junction. And these are really common places for people to get competitive and try and push ahead in the traffic. So again, watch those mirrors, be defensive, but be confident to put yourself into a gap. The ideal is to do what's called zipper merging, where you take it in turns, one from the left, one from the right, to just slip in together into that single lane. But of course, not everybody does that, and that's what you're looking out for. Coming around the bend, we've got a traffic light warning, we've got a direction sign. You can see the pupil staying in the left lane. Again, the left lane is the most ideal place to be unless you're overtaking or changing direction. And of course, scanning those lights, looking around for anyone who might be doing something they're not supposed to, and looking ahead for those markings that tell you those lanes are merging, ready to check your mirrors, ready for anyone who might want to try and get around you at the last minute. When it comes to doing your driving test or just driving in general, awareness is an absolute imperative. It's a key element to keeping yourself safe. The more you're looking around, the more alert you are to other people and their behaviors and the potential for them to do things wrong, the easier you can keep yourself safe and the more in control you're going to feel about your driving too. It's not only going to keep everything moving more smoothly for you, but it's going to help you feel less anxious about the potential risks that are out there. Another set of traffic lights, you can see they're on red this time, and the pupil's slowing down nice and early for them. again, when you're doing this, keep on those mirrors, see how cars behind you are behaving in order to keep yourself safe and prepared for them. And also keep your eyes moving for anything in the junction that could cause you a problem, particularly when you start moving away. When you're sat in a queue like this, bikes coming up the middle are something else to watch out for, so do listen out for them. Do check your mirrors, of course, frequently, because the advent of e-bikes and e-scooters, these can creep up the gaps without making any noise, so your mirrors are absolutely essential as you're waiting in queues. Those arrows again telling us the lanes merge, and again, it's all about covering those mirrors and just being prepared for avoiding any conflict caused by someone who may want to get ahead of you, not getting involved in a competitive kind of situation where you're putting yourself at risk. I've seen a few videos recently where people have done this. They're competing to get in front of each other, and as a result, they end up colliding with something. And let's face it, you just don't need that in your life generally, let alone when you're on your driving test. So being aware and then being prepared and defensive, it's going to keep you on track for a successful driving test. At the next traffic light, we're going to be taking a right turn, and this is going to lead us back into the test centre. See how the pupils lining up nice and early? Now, ideally, what we should be doing is checking our mirrors and signalling before we enter that filter lane. The pupil did check his mirrors and he positioned nice and early, so it didn't cause any risks, but his signal wasn't on until he's pretty much at the traffic light. So I'm going to record that as a driver fault. Like I said earlier on, if you're signaling when it's already obvious what you're doing, that's too late. You need to be signaling early enough that other people can see what you're going to do before you do it. Coming back into the test centre driveway, you'll see the pupil keeps to the very left-hand side of the entry, and that's absolutely spot on. That avoids you interfering with anyone coming out of the test centre, making sure you look up into that driveway too to ensure you've got a clear path before you make the turn. That brings this video to an end with a whopping total of 7 faults, which would be a pass on your driving test. I hope you found this video useful in preparing for your own driving test. If you have, please like, share and subscribe and leave your comments below. Thank you again for watching, and God bless you.